Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar from the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade about the EU's new Digital Product Passport initiative and the compliance requirements this introduces for manufacturers. My name is William Barnes-Graham, the Executive Editor at the Chartered Institute, and it's great to see so many of you joining today's session, already over 200. It's great for those of you who are new to our webinar programme, welcome along, and anyone returning, welcome back. If you are new to the Chartered Institute, just by way of introduction, we are the foremost association for importers, exporters, and supply chain professionals, with a mission to empower global trade by equipping businesses and individuals with the expertise needed to trade compliantly, sustainably, and profitably. Indeed, on the next slide, I'm delighted to say that as part of this webinar, we've established a new hub on our website for manufacturers. We're doing this because the industry is currently being affected by a number of new trade rules and initiatives in the UK, EU, and globally. You can scan the QR code on screen to find out more about this new support service, which has been designed to help manufacturers learn more about issues such as digital product passports, general product safety regulations, CBAMs, and so much more. As well as our further member-exclusive deep dive lunchtime learning webinars on topics like those mentioned just now, manufacturing members can also connect with each other and share best practice at regular networking online events, including our quarterly sectoral special interest groups. And on this new page, you can also find out more about our all-year support, including access to our international trade technical helpline and a range of other benefits. I believe the link is also being put in the chat as well by my colleague Biddy, so please do check out this great support service for manufacturers, and we'll say a bit more about it later on as well. Back to today's webinar, and on the next slide, please, Benji, let's introduce our speakers and talk through today's running order. We're delighted to be joined by two of the Chartered Institute's leading experts. Ilona Kafka will shortly be setting the scene with a presentation explaining what the EU's Digital Product Passport Scheme, or DPP, is all about. Ilona is the lead of the Institute's recently launched Import Advisory Practice with vast experience and expertise on cross-border trade, including the digitalization of custom processes and supply chains. Following Ilona's presentation, we will have a panel discussion about DPP, featuring our manufacturing lead, Paul Brooks. Paul has spent over 30 years in the corporate and commercial banking world, supporting businesses and manufacturers to trade internationally. And also joining the panel on the next slide, I am delighted to welcome two case study manufacturers from the Institute's membership. Kelly Hayes from Joseph Cheney & Sons and Christian Pullman from AES SIL. Kelly is the Office Services Manager at Joseph Cheney and is a seasoned international trade professional with over 13 years of experience in the industry, while Christian is the Head of Procurement at AES SIL, where they lead strategic sourcing initiatives and oversees export controls compliance. Really looking forward to hearing the trade stories of both of these fantastic manufacturing members of ours later on. On the next slide, though, before we get into the presentations, we're going to run a quick poll to find out a little bit more about you, our audience. So we're here asking, how do you describe your level of awareness and understanding of the EU's new digital product passport requirements? And the answer options are on screen, ranging from never heard of it to you've heard of it and you've got a strong understanding, and a couple bits in between. While you're answering that poll, the usual housekeeping notes from me. Firstly, you can contact me with any comments or questions using the question panel on the GoToWebinar window. We definitely encourage you to write in any questions, musings, or thoughts you may have, but please note we cannot guarantee we will get to every question in the allocated time, which is about 45 minutes today. Secondly, a recording of today's webinar, along with a copy of the slides, will be posted onto the Insights section of our website by the end of the week. So you'll just need to go to export.org.uk, then click the Resources tab in the navigation bar, and then Insights from the drop-down, and you should be able to find the slides and recording in a link there. Do get in touch if you have any issues with any of that. But let me shortly close the poll, and great to see over 300 people now on the line, so great to see such a great turnout today. And indeed, this webinar is timely because, well over a majority of you have either never heard of it, so that's 35% of you, a third, or only heard of it slightly and don't really know the details, that's 51% of you. So that's a pretty significant proportion of you who don't really have a great understanding of DPP at this stage. Thank you everyone for answering that poll. And we really do hope we can shift the dial a little bit on that response throughout this webinar. And on that note, it is my delight to hand over to Ilona on the next slide to explain what DPP is and why it is so significant. Over to you, Ilona.
Thank you, Will, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. Before we go into the specifics of the digital product passport, it's very important to understand the broader concept of the European Union commitment to a circular economy and its alignment with the European Green Deal. So next slide, please. That's why I would like to start from taking you through a little bit of details about the Circular Economy Action Plan introduced by EU. First launched in 2015 with 54 actions actually, and which were all achieved and fully implemented in 2019. After this was completed, the European Union introduced the new Circular Economy Action Plan that has 35 actions, and those are the key pillars of the European Green Deal, which is a framework designed to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. And today we'll heavily focus on the Ecodesign for Sustainable Product Regulation that is the source of the Digital Product Passport, and they both are central to the new Circular Economy Action Plan. So although these are just the main ones, that there are many other European Green Deal regulations that I will just mention now. For example, the EU Strategy Sustainable and Circular Textiles Regulation, the Construction Products Regulation, new EU battery regulation that I will touch upon today during the webinar, the EU Detergents Regulation, or the Green Claims Directive as well. Those regulations aim to transform the whole industries and drive sustainability through EU and make sure that the transparency is created across the supply chains. So yeah, let's begin unpacking the Ecodesign for Sustainable Products Regulation on the next slide. This regulation is a key part of the European Green Deal. It's an overarching strategy to make Europe carbon neutral by 2050, and it's a central role for achieving this plan. So what is ESPR, we call it? In simple terms, it's about ensuring that products sold in the EU are designed to be more sustainable. Also that the products that are being in the market have improved circularity, are energy efficient, easy to recycle, and also durable. So basically making the products last longer, use fewer resources, and have less impact on the environment. In the broader scope, Ecodesign Directive from 2009 has been replaced by ESPR now. So it will cover most of physical goods sold in the EU. That will exclude maybe products like food, feed, and maybe products designed solely for defense and national security. This is an EU regulation, so it means that it's binding across all the member states, and it applies so it came into force in 18 July 2024, and it will be obliging the businesses to comply with in the mid-July 2026. It targets mainly at the very beginning textiles, furniture, tires, ICT products, electronics, but it will cover the whole range as the time develops. The ESPR is structured to allow the product-specific requirements to be developed over time, and those rules will be focused on improving products' durability, reusability, and like I mentioned before, the sustainability. But this regulation is not just about bringing the law. It's what the customers want. So those products will be more transparent, sustainable, and purpose-driven. And this is where the Digital Product Passport, or DDP, comes in. Next slide, please. The ESPR regulation brings eco-design requirements, and these requirements are designed to change how the products are created, used, and disposed of, with the focus on improving the sustainability. So it will focus on the fact that the products have to be more durable and reliable, so they will have to last longer and perform more consistently over time. It will focus on reusability and upgradability, so the products can be upgraded or reused rather than thrown away. It should improve the repairability and maintenance, so that means that the product should be more affordable to repair than to throw away and buy a new one. They should also be more energy and water efficient, so production and resource consumption should be lower when they're being manufactured. They should be recyclable, and also they should include some recycled materials instead of needing for new raw resources. And also, it will consider environmental impact. So this information about carbon footprint and waste in general, how waste does it generate to manufacture, should be included. So promote better resource recovery and material efficiency from the production. What makes it different from the old eco-design rules? The old eco-design rules applied only to energy-related products like fridges, water pumps, and this is now changed and it will apply in all the products sold within the EU, with just some exceptions that I mentioned before. So those rules will be tailored later by regulated acts that will be issued by the European Commission. So the rules will not be the same for smartphones or shoes, or they will be different. They will be different for shoes or for smartphones or for other products. So, those rules will be based on scientific research, economic analysis, and input from the stakeholders to make sure that they are practical and efficient. The European Commission also made it very clear that those requirements will not negatively impact small and medium-sized businesses, and they will find ways to mitigate this impact so that it will not be negative. Next slide, please. Now, as we just covered the requirements, we can have a look at other things covered under ESPR. The new digital product passport we'll discuss in a second in more details, but I wanted to make sure that you have awareness of other major measures that are being applied. One of them is rules on destruction of unsold consumer products. So manufacturers and supply chain actors will be required to prevent the need of destroying the unsold products with a specific ban on destroying unsold textiles and footwear. So that is in place. There will be also the new rules for online marketplaces, and online marketplaces will now have a specific responsibilities under ESPR. They will have to make sure that the products sold on their platforms comply with the eco-design requirements mentioned before. They will also have to cooperate with the market surveillance authorities and make sure to remove the products that are not compliant from their portfolio. And this builds on the EU's Digital Services Act. That's it's focused on traceability of traders and removal of illegal content from the internet. It's a regulation that's been implemented in 2022, and it gives a bit more rules for digital services operating within EU and regulates heavily intermediary services like hosting providers, online marketplaces, and social media platforms. The next one is the green public procurement. This is a very important regulations that drives demand for sustainable products by mandating green public procurement for the government. To give you an example, public authorities across the EU spend approximately 1.8 trillion annually on goods and services, and now they will be required to integrate those green public procurement criteria into the procurement process. And there's also the Ecodesign Forum, which was established to consult stakeholders and develop the product roles for the ESPR. Next slide, please. We can now look at what actually is Digital Product Passport. And it's essentially a digital record that will hold detailed information about the product, components, and the materials used for the creation of this specific product. It will capture the end-to-end supply chain data and This data will be basically from sourcing of raw materials to manufacturing process, distribution, and end of the life cycle. The information stored in the DPP will be different depending on the type of the product, and those will be more further established in those delegated acts issued by European Commission, which will be then developed in consultation with stakeholders. So they will not be just made up. They will be made in consultation so that everybody's needs are addressed when it comes to manufacturers. Why does it matter? It matters because it brings in a circular economy. It will give everybody's comprehensive sustainability data about the product. So everybody will be able to make enabled decision, they will be able to make decisions that are well informed based on the information provided in the passport. So stakeholders like manufacturers, consumers, regulators, but also customs authorities that will allow the goods to enter the territory of the EU, they will have access to all this information. So what else is important? The traceability of the goods, so environmental footprint of the goods, and it will be transparent across the whole life cycle of the product because of the passports. The key features of the DPP are applicability across the borders. So regardless of the origin of the product, where it has been manufactured, all products entering the EU market must have a DPP. Accessibility, the DPP has to be available for all the stakeholders throughout the supply chain. So from the very beginning of when the product has been put into the market till the end life cycle of the product, it has to be available. The European Commission will create a public web portal where DPPs will be accessible for everybody as well. This will be dynamic and evolving. So the concept of DPP continues to evolve as the regulation goes. The full implementation is planned by 2030, and the technology behind it is quite new still, so the future updates can expand it even further. Next slide, please. Implementing the digital product passport requires several technical requirements. So to ensure that it's effective and interoperability across different sectors is there. So the key aspects of that are complementary role, for example, which basically means that it's not replacing what is already existing. It will support product manuals and labels, the physical ones on the products. It will just enhance the accessibility and depth of the information for those. The transparency has to be there to grant an easy access to all stakeholders for the passport, like I mentioned. Also, it's important that economic operators that place the product on the market keep the information up to date and comply with the regulatory standards. Also, like I mentioned before, SME support, SMEs will be supported and in adopting the DPP system, and they will have to, the EU Commission promised that it will not be burdening the SMEs that put the products on the market. The data carrier requirements, each product will have to have a data carrier, so like a QR code or RFID tag that will be linked to unique DPP. The data center where the data carrier has to be durable and remain functional throughout the whole life cycle of the product. So the stakeholder that is trying to access it can retrieve this information at any point. Something that's very important in all those efforts is standardization for interoperability. So all the frameworks around the DPP push towards standardization, and we have to focus on developing a common data formats and protocols that will enable this interoperability in accessing the DPP or creating new DPPs for new products. Centralized and decentralized systems, it's much about how do we store the data and how do we put the unique records for identifiers online so that the data storage is handled in a flexible and resilient way. Next slide, please. There are some data requirements. As I mentioned before, there will be delegated acts that will specify, according to the groups, what data has to be put in DTP for specific groups. However, the ESPR already defines a little bit about the general information that DPPs should have. And this is not an exhausting list that you see on the screen now. I just wanted to highlight some examples for you. So for example, the unique product identifier, which is a distinct code associated to each product that will make it easier to track the product throughout its life cycle. Global trade item number, it's a globally recognized identifier that will also distinguish the product in the international trade and inventory management. Commodity codes, which are very important as well. Compliance documentation, such as certificates and declarations of conformity that allows us to know that those products apply to standards and regulations. User manuals and instructions, which are important as well. Performance information, manufacturers' details, importers' information, and also substances of concern. So, for example, if there are any hazardous materials contained in that product. Next slide, please. Who is affected? It's a whole range of stakeholders that will have to pay attention to how this is developing. So manufacturers that will have to put all those important information in DPPs, but they will have to adhere to DPP requirements as a regulatory compliance. Consumers who will have a lot of information to access, and it will be either improving their life quality or making it sometimes challenging. Supply chain partners, regulatory authorities that will have to monitor and develop new frameworks and tools to monitor compliance effectively in each country in the European Union, as well as outside. Retailers that will have to train their staff and be able to address consumers' inquiries regarding DPP. Technology providers that will see increased demand for platforms such as DPP holding platforms. Also security concerns that they will have to pay attention to. Next slide, please. I just wanted to quickly show you the EU battery regulation that I mentioned before, but it is one of the batteries will be one of the first products that will consist DPP, and also the regulation itself mandates the introduction of the battery passport. So from the implementation timeline, February 1st, 2025 is when the manufacturers of batteries will have to gather the carbon footprint on their batteries. And from February 1st, 2027, all industrial and electric vehicles batteries will that have a capacity exceeding 2 kilowatt hours. They have to possess a battery passport that, of course, are being sold within the EU. And it will impact mining and refining companies, cell and battery producers, vehicle brands, and also battery servicing, refurbishing, and recycling companies, because they will be obliged to close the DPP or inform that the battery DPP can be closed now as it has finished its life cycle. Next slide, please. What are the benefits of DPP? I believe that we are very scared of what are the consequences for manufacturers, but there are also many benefits, and I have just listed a few, but I think they're very important for everybody because they can differentiate your product, and in a crowded market, they can just ensure that you are creating sustainable products and production practices within your company and your brand, and that puts you up front for any customers that are aware of those requirements. That you can leverage data to your benefit as well by identifying inefficiencies and waste, and optimize your processes in the process of analyzing all the information you need for DPPs. You can improve supply chain visibility, end-to-end oversight of your supply chains, and make sure that you monitor and identify all bottlenecks in the process of creating the DPP register. Also create stronger business relationships, because you'll have to communicate with all the stakeholders in your supply chain. So Next slide, please. This is just a timeline that you can refer to later regarding the implementation of the DPP. Just you'll get the slides later, so I can always look at them. Next slide, please. How to prepare for DPP. This is very important, and there is not much we can do yet, probably because the regulation is still developing in the proper framework, but I have listed a few important points that we have to focus on. And first one is, of course, understanding the concept and the regulation and familiarizing yourself with probably also the European Green Deal and the Circular Economy Action Plan, so that you know how your goods are affected and if there are other regulations aside from ESPR and DDP that could affect your goods. Then review the technology readiness. So you have to look at your data points, data sharing capacity, data security within your company, and determine whether your systems have to be upgraded or they can handle the demands, and how to create this interoperability between DPP software and your other software. Engage with your stakeholders because the collaboration is the key. So you always have to discuss the responsibilities and data requirements that will go into DPP. Then build your internal knowledge. You have to train your staff to bring awareness and training programs to make sure that they know what is coming. Then prepare an implementation plan, implementation strategy that will help you. And last point is consider running small-scale pilot projects. I believe many companies are already running the DPP projects, pilots. We'll hear about them from the people that we have invited today to our panel soon. So stay tuned, identify gaps, and make sure that you fine-tune the process through getting ready as soon as you can. Thank you, and back to you, Will.
Thank you, Lona. That's a great overview of what is clearly a very significant regulation for manufacturers. We're going to run our second poll now, this time asking which aspect of DPP you're most concerned by. The options are up on screen. And this is an important poll because, as noted earlier, we will be running further sessions on DPP for our members in February. So your responses here will help to shape what information we prepare for those exclusive webinars. Indeed, a lot of the questions you're sending in as well will also inform how we shape the content. So thank you for the questions which are coming in. Ilona, I'll start with one which was asked in advance by Lee, who says, could you say a bit more about the other EU Green Deal policies, including the EU strategy for sustainable and circular textiles?
Sure, of course. When you look at all those regulations around the sustainability that European Union is trying to introduce, you can see that they all create a framework as they are. So for example, DPP and the product passport comes as a topic in all of those regulations. So for example, textiles, right? The batteries, like I mentioned, there is a requirement for the digital product passport in those. The EU strategy for sustainable and circular textiles is focusing on improving the circularity of textiles, but also it's looking at improving the durability of the textiles and increasing the possibility of repairing them as well. There is also the construction product regulation. This one is focusing on the construction products that are being brought into Europe or made in Europe are safe for environment. The battery regulation that I talked about for a little bit, this is very important, and it's making sure that those batteries within the EU are sustainable and safe, but also more recyclable, because I think recyclability of the batteries are it's a very important topic. There is also the EU Green Claims Directive. This one is very important, especially because it focuses on combating greenwashing. Greenwashing is a big problem right now for many, and it will make sure that the criteria are clear and verifiable, so you can make sure that the company that's stating that's used as green is actually doing green practices while manufacturing or creating the products that they are selling. I can go on and on, Will, so you need to stop me there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let's stop there because there's a lot of there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of different regulations. If we can close and share the poll result, but yeah, thank you, Alana. That's a really useful overview, and I hope that's helpful, Lee. Just in terms of results, we won't dwell on these too long because we do want to have some questions at the end. So 2/3 of you say complexity of implementation, so that's quite a significant majority. 19% of you compliance costs, and you can see the other options there. So the complexity of this seems to be a real challenge at the moment for people on the line. If we can close that poll though. Thank you, Alana. Before we move on to the next section, on the next slide, I just wanted to quickly let everyone know that if you join the Chartered Institute by the 11th of February, so that's in just under 2 weeks' time, you can join both our next manufacturing special interest group and 2 further webinars going deeper into new DPP requirements, which will cover a lot of the questions we're getting in through the chat room. The Special Interest Group's next online meeting is on January 28th, and that will be a great chance to hear from Ilona again on DPP, but also to connect with like-minded professionals and fellow businesses in the sector to voice any concerns or queries you may have, and also to share best practice. Business members at the Institute also get access to a wealth of exclusive resources and support, including our lunchtime learning webinars, our international trade technical helpline, and a range of exclusive resources and updates. On the next slide, you'll see that we are indeed doing 2 member exclusive lunchtime learnings in February, drilling down further into DPP. One on the February 13th, that's on how to collect accurate data across your supply chain for DPP, and a second on February 20th about how to ensure compliance with new regulations throughout your product's life cycle. So a great chance to get further details and understanding on this big new regulation. I believe a link may be being posted again for these events. So please do check these out, join our community to ensure you get the further in-depth support and insights you need on all your DPP and other compliance requirements. At this point, though, on the next slide, I'd like to welcome on our panel, including 2 of our business members indeed, to discuss how the industry is preparing for DPP. So joining Ilona are Kelly Hayes from Joseph Cheney and Sons, Christian Pullman from AES SIL, and Paul Brooks, the manufacturing lead at the Chartered Institute. Beginning with you, Paul, how is industry in general feeling about DPP, and how prepared would you say UK manufacturers are as of today?
Yeah, thanks, Will, and thanks to Ilona for the context and the background there. I think as with most regulatory changes, there are different levels of awareness and preparedness. I think we saw that from the poll at the start. Overall, there's some general awareness, but not many businesses will feel 100% confident about what DPP means for them. And I think that's absolutely fine at this stage. Just reflecting on the poll, I think we need to tap into the 1% that were 100% ready for DPP, because they probably need to be on this panel alongside us, because the vast majority of businesses were in the former camps in terms of wanting to find out more. And it's understandable that not many businesses know an awful lot about it. It's a phased start to this implementation. It's going to be delivered over the next 5 years or so. So the fact there's uncertainty, we're planning for that, and we're addressing and providing support to members and others, and to help them raise the awareness, understand what it means to them. But I think also what I'd like to shout out at the start is I'd like those manufacturers and businesses to think of this as a real opportunity to potentially differentiate themselves from competitors, understand exactly what their supply chain looks like, and use this for competitive advantage. So coming back to the initial question, bit of a mixed bag, but we are all on a journey together in terms of developing our knowledge and understanding of what DPP is about and what it means for your individual business.
Great answer. Thanks, Paul. And I mean, in terms of our journey, what support is there available for manufacturers to prepare for changes like DPP?
Yeah, well, as you'd expect, we've put together a pretty comprehensive support mechanism primarily for our members, but we're also encouraging other businesses to engage with us as well. 46% of our membership are in the manufacturing sector, so we've got an existing community of like-minded people who will be traveling this journey together. So there's great networking opportunities, both online through things like our manufacturing special interest group. The next one happens to be next week. We also run a lot of in-person events in regions up and down the country, and also we got our annual MemberCon event coming up in Leeds on the 13th of March, just a couple of weeks away. So there's plenty of opportunities for businesses to engage with one another, talk to one another, and learn about DPP and other issues. I think, but as a business member, one of the main benefits that our members continually sort of tell us about is the access to the international technical helpline. So any compliance issues, any DPP issues that they have from now going forward as members, they can pose those questions to our technical helpline, and they'll get answers from our experts. And probably some of those will end up with on Ilona's desk, but she'll be the person to answer the question. And as we've already said, we've got a couple of further webinars coming up in February that are going to do a deep dive into a number of the specific issues, and no doubt we will be developing further content webinars as the year goes by, and over the coming years. As I've said, it's going to be a process of learning together over the next probably 3 to 5 years, or maybe longer, as DPP is rolled out across the whole industry. Final thing, in terms of what we do at our core is education, training and support. We'll be updating all our other courses and educational collateral to take account of the fact that DPP is coming in on a stage basis. So we'll be well placed to advise all types of businesses, not just manufacturers, but manufacturers at the heart.
Thanks, Paul. Really great response there. And just on the technical helpline as well, because we're getting loads of really great questions coming through, sort of kind of company specific or sector specific questions, which we can't really ask at a public webinar, but we would definitely push towards the helpline. So do check out that support of those sort of more company specific questions. I'd like to bring in Christian and Kelly now. Thank you both of you for joining us. It's great to have members on the call. Maybe beginning with Christian, could you say a bit about how your business, AES Seal, what it is, what you do, but also how you will be affected by DPP?
Yep, so AES Seal, we're a large manufacturer of mechanical seals, about £260 million turnover per year. We work across the globe. We have 119 sites in about 80 different countries. So a fairly big operation. In terms of the DDP itself, the preparation, I think the easy stuff we've already done. On our product packaging, we have QR codes, which contains the installation instructions, proper disposal, etc. For me, the biggest issue which we will face is regarding the sustainability realm, which is going to be needed on there. What does that include? Is it the carbon content? So a bit more background. So AES are actually a net zero business. So we audit our supply chain an awful lot on ESG. They're probably very much bored of us asking questions around sustainability. But one thing we find is that so many businesses are behind where you think they would be right now. So in terms of when you track emissions, about 68% of our supply chain don't currently have them externally verified. Therefore, that would be my first concern, would be the accuracy and availability of information required to meet the sustainability goals in DDP. When you look at across the globe, the US, obviously on Monday, they had a new president. Looks like sustainability is pushed down their agenda. It's no longer top priority. Therefore, if you're buying products from America, it's going to be very difficult to get sustainability information from those suppliers. The other thing for me would be the support for the smaller businesses. So obviously in the UK, if you're not a 60 million pound business or 250 people, you don't have to support report on your emissions. Therefore, in terms of the support for them to get to that stage where they can start reporting on the emissions and the associated emissions with the products, it's a long way off. I don't think 5 years is long enough time for businesses to get up to speed.
Thank you, Christian. I mean, it sounds as though it's an opportunity for your business, but obviously, like many small businesses, it's a real transformation which is being asked about through this regulation. It's quite striking. If I can bring in Kelly now, actually, just to say a bit about your business as well, Joseph Cheney and Sons. Could you say a bit about your business and your story with DPP so far?
Yeah, we are a high-end shoe manufacturer. We are wholly manufactured in the UK, which is something we are very proud of, and we love to promote that. The challenges we will face is the volume of information that we will need to give. We have a vast number of SKUs. I'm talking in the tens of thousands of SKUs. To be able to put that all that information together is going to be very costly for us. So it's also the cost that's attached to being able to provide the information, and also where that information has to be on the product is also a concern for us, because a product made of leather cannot have something on it that is meant to stay there in the long term for the life of the product. It will wear away.
Some real challenges. That's a real sort of physical challenge as well. I mean, you both kind of touched upon some of the challenges already, but let's just, for other businesses on the line, kind of what kind of practical steps are you guys already starting to take in terms of your preparations for DPP? Are there any things which other businesses could be following you on to start implementing right now? Christian, if I start with you on that one.
For myself, it would be in terms of looking after what you can control. So in terms of making sure you're aware of what the correct commodity codes are. I'm sure you guys offer support in terms of direction on commodity codes. There's having the information available regarding data sheets, the accuracy of those. I would say control what you can control first, and then look outside.
And Kelly, any thoughts from you?
So for us, if I talk about what we're doing as a company, we are looking to hopefully implement the DPP as part of our rollout of changing the barcode, the linear barcode, to the 2D barcode. Hopefully we can roll all that information in together and do that at the same time, so that come 2027, when the barcode changes, we're, if not fully prepared, well on our way to being prepared.
Great practical steps. I just want to very quickly give our panelists a quick pause and ask us one final poll question to the audience. I just sort of want to gauge really how your understanding and awareness of DPP has shifted over the course of this webinar so far. Very conscious there's been a lot of information come through, and it is quite a daunting regulation, so it'd be really interesting to see how you guys respond to this poll. Just as people answer that, we'll come to some audience questions in a minute. We'll go over a couple minutes just to ensure we have some audience questions included. But Ilona, just any thoughts there on Christian and Kelly's situations there, and kind of any thoughts about how other businesses can prepare off the back of what they were saying just now?
Like I mentioned, it's very important that we look at what we can start doing now and start preparing at least the plan of implementation. So analyze how I can start, because depending on the type of a product that you are manufacturing, it will be probably a little bit different process. And also depending on the maturity of your software, how far advanced you are with digitalization, and how good are your relationships with your stakeholders and suppliers of components to your final product. So looking at all of those can help you to decide what and where to start. That's my advice.
Thank you, Ilona. And the dial has shifted a little bit. So far fewer of you are now kind of have no understanding. 50% of you are now aware, but kind of just a little grasp of the details, which is kind of what we'd expect. 44% of you now know the basics, and an extra percent of you now have a strong understanding. So great to see the dial has shifted a little bit off the back of this webinar. If we go to the next slide, we'll just do a couple of questions. I'm going to sort of just try and pick out a couple of themes. Tony asked a question which a couple of people asked, which is about what threshold of output does a manufacturer have to comply with for this? Is that units of output or of monetary value, Ilona?
So the DPP is about the product itself. So we have to focus on the product and what it represents. And depending on the product type, they will be put into different groups. And depending on the group the product ends up in, we'll have to provide different data about the product. So not sure about the threshold, but it's about rather what the product is and how to improve the visibility of data about this product. So if I scan the QR code, I want to know about this product and what this is made of, how much water has been wasted or used to create this product, how I can fix it, how I can dispose of the product without having a negative effect on the environment. So it's more about creating this visibility over the impact of the product to the world in general.
Thanks, Alon. I hope that's useful, Tony. A couple quick fire questions, if we can do these quick fire. One from Sophie, who says, how is the product lifecycle measured or estimated, and who is responsible for deciding how it is verified?
So this is an interesting question, and I think this will be still a little bit defined more when we know more about the specific groups with delegated acts. But giving you example from the batteries, because this has been already outlined, each battery will have to have a unique QR code. So each battery will have a unique barcode, and this life cycle of the battery ends when the barcode is scanned at the recycling facility or utilizing facility where we are getting disposed of the battery. That's where the access to the DPP ends. And let's see how it will be for different products.
It does seem as though you'll need to know how this applies for product by product basis. It seems a really big learning from today. I'll squeeze in one last question from Lewis, who says, when the EU says this applies to electronics, as an example, how do they define this? Is this for whole assemblies, e.g. phones, or is it for sub-assembly electronics that go into these products?
So it's for each product. If you are sending a component, it's a product, right? It's a part of a product. It's not about full products. A component is also a product. So all of those will have to have a DPP.
Terrific. Well, we've had loads of questions. We'll have to address some of these in our future events and networking events as well. But on that note, we have run out of time. So thank you everyone for the questions, for the comments in. Thank you especially to today's speakers in Ilona, Paul, Kelly and Christian for giving such a great account of what DPP is, its repercussions for manufacturers, and also how industry is starting to prepare for it. On the next slide, a reminder that if you join the Institute by February 11th, just so there's one more slide, another one, you can get more support and information on DPP, including answers to any of the questions we couldn't get to today, and on various other regulatory changes such as GPSR, CBAM, and things like CDS as well. So do scan the on-screen QR code to find out more about all of this support. Remember that if you join by February 11th, you can access exclusive webinars covering key aspects of DPP compliance in more detail. This includes supply chain data collection and product lifecycle compliance. There's a range of other support too, including our special interest groups and international trade technical helpline. So do definitely join our bustling community of manufacturing businesses and traders. On the final slide, one final thing to put out is that we are soon hosting our annual member conference, MemberCon. It's in Leeds on March the 13th. This event will be a great opportunity for businesses to discover practical trade insights from experts like Paul and Ilona, as well as a chance to connect and network with like-minded trade professionals and industry stakeholders. If you're already a member, you should definitely come along to meet the team and your peers. Even if you're not signed up yet, it should be a great day full of practical insights and tips on all things trade and customs. So please do come along. As we bring things to a close, please remember that the slides and the recording of today's webinar are being uploaded to the Insights section of our website, export.org.uk, under the Resources tab. Please get in touch if you have any issues accessing this. As you leave, please do let us know what you thought of today's session and any suggestions for our future events by completing the short exit survey. But for now, all that's left for me to say is a big thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Will. Cheers.